With each passing minute, a border blockade is costing millions of dollars and strangling the Canadian economy. I'm MJ Banias. This is The Breakdown.
Federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to address the blockades and occupations.
In response to government mandates for COVID-19 vaccinations, a protest movement of truckers began traveling across Canada on January 22nd. The movement, known as the Freedom Convoy, grew to an estimated 3,000 big rigs and nearly 15,000 people, who would go on to occupy part of downtown Ottawa starting on January the 28th. 1 week later, Freedom Convoy organizers decided to take the protest one step further.
Principally, I think the truckers realize, as we all do, that transportation is the lifeblood of the economy, and trade corridors are those major arteries.
This is Barry Prentice, a professor in supply chain management at the Asper School of Business at the University of Manitoba.
And so if they shut down those arteries, then people are going to pay attention.
Protesters did just that. They decided to start blocking borders to the United States, pinching the arteries of the economy. Let's break down what happened. Southern Ontario is Canada's busiest trading hub. Toronto and surrounding cities push into a peninsula with Lake Erie to the south, Lake Ontario to the southeast, and Lake Huron to the west. Essential trade routes with the United States require key bridges that span narrow gaps between the Great Lakes. For instance, the Blue Water Bridge in Sarnia, Ontario, connects to Port Huron, Michigan, at the 250-meter-wide mouth of Lake Huron on the St. Clair River. Following the river south, we come to one of the busiest trade routes in Canada, the Ambassador Bridge, which connects Windsor, Ontario, to Detroit, Michigan. As the Freedom Convoy movement escalates, the organizers set their sights right here, the Ambassador Bridge. At 3:00 p.m. local time on Monday, February 7th, protesters begin to park their vehicles, blocking the southbound lane of Huron Church Road near College Road. Commuters heading into Canada are unable to move around the fast-growing blockade, and traffic on the bridge ground to a halt. This prompted U.S. border services to close down the border into Canada. By day's end, thousands were left stranded on the U.S. side of the border, and the situation was becoming dire.
Because as you kind of touched on here, the Ambassador Bridge is Canada's busiest link to the United States and accounts for about 25% of trade between the two countries.
The blockades begin to put pressure on the supply chain, especially in the automotive industry. 40% of the trade between Windsor and Detroit is strictly automotive parts and electrical equipment, so manufacturers start to explore alternative routes. Michigan's Department of Transportation recommended the Port Huron-Sarnia border crossing. While automakers did reroute some shipments to that border, wait times to cross were long. Several major automotive manufacturers considered using air freight to get shipments to their factories. Flights between Ontario and major production facilities in Michigan and Indiana would have allowed parts to arrive, but in a limited capacity. Already facing hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue, auto manufacturers temporarily slowed down and even suspended production. With no end in sight, and pro-nationalist political pundits in the United States suggesting Canada is an unstable trading ally, on February 11th, Ontario Premier Doug Ford declared a state of emergency in his province.
Whether it was a wise thing to do or not is a different debate. But when you start blocking trade corridors, then you start interfering with what I would call the public good.
On Sunday, February 13th, police officers began to clear the blockade on the Ambassador Bridge. A day later, Prime Minister Trudeau enacted the Emergencies Act, allowing law enforcement across the country to do the same. Considering the delays, worker layoffs, and rerouted deliveries, economists estimate the total loss hovers between $3 and $6 billion Canadian.
Business hates uncertainty. And, do I want to have my investment in Canada and rely on parts from there?
A breakdown analysis of these blockades indicates that businesses across multiple sectors must find ways of obtaining the same product from multiple sources, creating a viable fail-safe should future blockades ever occur. Security experts are also suggesting companies actively monitor political and social issues, as well as violent fringe groups, emboldened by the success of these blockades, should they attempt to shut down borders in the future.
The importance of transportation and supply chains in general really is one of those messages that came back. We tend to not really recognize its importance until something stops it. And then all of a sudden it's front page news. It's the biggest invisible industry we have. It's like the fog of war. You don't really know what is the future.
It may be true that it is impossible to predict the future, but we can prepare for it. Thank you for watching, and make sure you click subscribe. I'm MJ Banias, and this has been your Breakdown.